And we're live. Hi everyone, I'm Patrina from the Association of Pet Dog Trainers, and this is another instalment of Train Your Dog Month. Tonight we're going to be talking about all things adolescence, and I'm going to be joined by Robin Bates. Robin is a dog trainer based in Belfast, Northern Ireland. Hi Robin. I just
Hi,
say
how are
Robin.
you?
Yeah. Good. I keep thinking I'm going to call you Robert, but I'm going to really try to remember the Robin. I don't know why it just keeps coming in my head. So you're based in Belfast and you've been training dogs professionally for 20 years. That's right,
I
isn't it?
have, yes. I started 30 years ago in a dog club and I got hooked and I started doing competitive obedience. So then I wasn't happy about the way dogs were being trained at the time, especially in the club I belonged to. So I went and found better ways to train dogs. So here I am, 20 years later.
Perfect. All right, well, I'm going to hand over to you and you're going to be talking to us about adolescence. Hopefully, everybody can hear okay. Just do a little reaction or say hi in the chat just so that we can make sure you can actually hear all right. Let's just wait. We'll just see who's watching live. Yeah, we've got a little thumbs up. So we definitely got one person watching live. Excellent. Great. Yeah, a few people are watching live. Perfect. Hi, Joe Hoskinson. Yeah, lots of people are watching. Perfect. All right, over to
Okay,
you, Robin. If anybody's got any questions, just pop them in the chat and we'll do a little Q&A at the end.
certainly. Okay, so my name's Robin, and I've been a member of the Association of Pet Dog Trainers for about 20 years. And I've been doing classes, one-to-one behavioural consultations, and I'm a committee member of Mid-Antrim Animal Sanctuary, so I've done a lot of work with rescue dogs. Um, what brought me to discuss adolescence in dogs is that in March last year, I rescued a collie at 7 months, and I wasn't prepared for the whirlwind that hit me. And I learned a lot about collies and adolescence pretty quickly, so that I could deal with him better because he was a bit of a mess actually when he got to me, and I think it was just one of those things. Adolescent dogs put into rescue and they're confused and they're lost and they're frightened, but he's turning out to be an excellent dog. So I did think I was ready for adolescence, having had many dogs throughout my life, but it turned out I wasn't really that ready. So I've learned so much recently. I feel I'm in a position to talk about it. So the Dictionary of Psychology states that adolescence is the period of development marked at the beginning of the onset of puberty and at the end by the attainment of psychological or physiological maturity. It also should be noted that this term is much less precise than it appears to be because both the onset of puberty and the attainment of maturity are effectively impossible to define or specify. So that opens up a whole world of variables as to when it happens and when it doesn't happen, and when it finishes and when it doesn't finish. So we're going to discuss a little bit about that. We're going to discuss a little bit about what we can do about adolescence and how we can train our dogs or steer our dogs through adolescence quite relatively stress-free. It's not stress-free, I can promise you that, but we'll do our best to help you get through that. So there are so many variables. It starts and finishes at different times. There's the sexual maturity as well as the skeletal maturity, and there's breed differences and the difference between males and females. So adolescence, the onset begins at approximately 6 months, at approximately the time when they lose their first teeth. Um, Unlike humans, it varies between dogs, different breeds, different ages, different sizes, and it, for the small breeds, adolescence can last about a year, and for the giant breeds, it can be 2 years plus. But those are just vague figures. They're just, it can happen in a year, it can happen in 2 years. So With the onset of puberty, dogs are undergoing many changes with their bodies, so we have to be very aware and sympathetic with that. There's a huge surge of hormones, a larger surge of hormones than at any other time of a dog's life happens in this adolescent period. Testosterone in the males and estrogen in the females. These are both sex hormones and are produced faster than at any time. There's also a lot of skeletal changes when the bone density increases or ossifies. The bones become more solid and more strong. Muscles get bigger as well, and the dogs get bigger. So there's a lot of change in the size from a skinny wee puppy or that grows into a big mature adult. And that happens in quite a relatively short space of time. So dogs finish growing at different times, and this can depend on genetics, it can depend on diet, it can depend on any health issues or injuries, the environment they were born in and bred in and live in, and also the blood supply to the bones, and also whether they're neutered or not. So we'll talk about neutering in a little while. There's so much adjustment in the body, and they become bigger, stronger, and more energetic. And there's, especially in the males with testosterone, it makes them more confident. So all these changes are happening, and we need to be sympathetic. So there's a lot of growing pains and a lot of things going on that the dog doesn't understand. So they can lead to typical behavior changes. So when we have our puppies, we can train them easily. They absorb lots of information. We feel our puppies are doing really, really well. And then adolescence kicks in. And once this kicks in, the adolescent, like our own teenagers, they start to lose focus. Their attention span is decreased. The cues that your puppy were really excellent at seem to be forgotten. They're not as attentive on you because they're more interested in the outside world and they want to go and socialize and learn different things. They also have that confidence to go and do that. So the puppy that was clinging on to you when they become adolescent, they now want to explore further. The same as we did when we were kids, when we wanted to, well, we were all different as well. So some of us were were difficult to handle for our parents if we look back, and some of us were easier. I'm not going to say what I was. So they're not as attentive to you and they're not as focused on you, but they're more focused on the outside world. It can be there can be a regression in toilet training, especially the males will tend to mark around the house, but the females will do it as well. They will also appear to test our boundaries. But it's not testing our boundaries. It's just the way they are. They're just all over the place, essentially. Concentration wise, training wise, learning wise, even settling wise. Sometimes they don't settle very well. So the main training issue really is recall. It appears to have disappeared because the dogs are now interested in other things. They change their interest from us to other things, but they need to meet other dogs, they need to socialize, they need to learn how to behave in social situations, and it's part of natural development and learning, and it's learning of social skills. The adolescent also will need to chew a lot more because their jaws are getting stronger and their teeth are bedding in, so there will be a second chewing phase as well. So the one thing we need to remember, adolescent dogs are not being dominant, they're not testing boundaries, they're just going through a natural phase of their development as we did. And it's very important to be sensitive to this. So when I got Cooper the Collie, every morning he had destroyed something and it was driving me nuts. But I had a big sign at the bottom of the stairs saying, no matter what Cooper has destroyed, it's just part of his natural development. Now, male dogs are, I would say, a little bit more difficult than the female dogs, but it's not necessarily so. It's just from my own experience. So from the onset of puberty, males produce testosterone, and they will start to lift their leg. So that is the sure sign of adolescence kicking in. They start to mark territory, they become territorial, they're defensive. They may start to urinate inside, but it's usually on posts, door frames, corner sofas, etc. So they'll be marking territory essentially. They also have lots of lapses in attention, and they will also taste other dogs' urine, especially females. If this is one thing Cooper still does, so he's just coming out of adolescence, and he does do a lot of licking. He also does a lot of sniffing, so a good walk doesn't appear to be a good walk because he has to sniff everything and pee on everything. In females, they will have their first heat or season between 6 and 12 months, and they will also mark and urinate a little bit more, also possibly in the house. And this was to attract the attention of males and to let other dogs know that she will be coming into season as well. Also, coats will change. The nice soft puppy fur will change into the adult coat, which could be more breed specific. I know that small terrier or Airedale terriers are born black, and as they reach puberty, they become that black and tan color that they're known for, and other terriers will be similar. So most breeds will change from a puppy coat into their natural adult coat. Male dogs will also start roaming to find a mate, or may start roaming to find a mate. Actually, Cooper's done very little roaming, and it's usually just to be socialized around his area. Male dogs will hump a lot, or may hump a lot. Actually, it doesn't happen with all of them. So that's showing strength and testing boundaries as well, testing boundaries with other dogs. Actually, it doesn't happen with all dogs because I haven't had a serious humper ever, and I've had about 4 or 5 male dogs in my life. Also, male dogs, well, both male and female will take more risks. And I think if you remember back to when you were a teenager, you thought you were going to live forever and you did take risks. And also, these adolescent dogs will take a lot of risks. They're more persistent in what they're doing and will be more aggressive and competitive with other male dogs. This is quite common, especially around adolescence. Cooper actually is quite aggressive to other dogs. He will growl and bark at them, but he's never allowed near enough to show any signs of aggression. And he is improving rapidly, actually. So, things that we can do, things that we'll talk about neutering, actually. So, it's a common belief that neutering will solve adolescent problems, especially with the males. Yes, it can calm them down. Yes, it will remove the testosterone. The health benefits will be there'll be no testicular cancer, and high testosterone levels can worsen prostate problems. Castration will not solve behavioral problems. It will decrease territorial marking. It will decrease wandering if they're looking for a mate. It will decrease competitive aggression and excessive humping. However, it will make some behaviors worse, and they will be harder for a behaviorist or trainer to fix. So it will make fear aggression worse. A timid dog will become more timid and be harder to get more confidence, and there will be possibly a fear of vets and strangers. It makes it more difficult to work with a neutered adolescent dog than it does with an unneutered one. Female dogs and spaying. So spaying is the removal of the ovaries and uterus, so they cannot reproduce. And the sexual maturity in females comes at different times depending on the breed and the size of the dog. Once puberty is reached, the heat cycle begins, and female dogs will display behaviors like being irritable, have little focus, similar to the males, and little concentration. They also urinate to draw attention to themselves. and this happens about twice a year. Early spaying and neutering, early spaying and neutering before sexual maturity can affect the whole body, especially the skeletal development. Um, Bones grow and develop at different rates. They become denser at different times, and this variation, especially on joints, can have a negative effect because the sex hormones help with the development of those bones. And if they're neutered, they can create problems like elbow dysplasia and perhaps arthritis later in life. So, to work with your dog through adolescence, we need to do some training. The toughest part of an adolescent dog is losing the relationship between your puppy and you, but it is only a temporary thing. So if you've had your dog since a puppy, keep training the exercises, and if you've rescued one, start from the beginning as if it was a new dog. The rules of training are essentially it should be fun, it should be reward based, use the dog's favorite toys and treats, and be patient and keep your sessions short because focus can be a little bit short. Practice walking games, breed specific games, and things that will fulfill them mentally. So look up your breed and what they were bred to do, and maybe try and fulfill them that way. Also train impulse control games like wait at a door, wait on a mat, and practice maybe some scent games. The main thing to do is to retrain your recall, use a long line, keep your garden secure so they can't wander. And group classes will help with the adolescents for their need to socialize and learn from other dogs as well as focus on you. You will know when your dog is not focusing, they will not want to train. They'll look at you as if you're daft and they will walk away. So at that point, you just have to leave it and walk away and revisit it later. But if you keep your sessions short and keep training fun and get some levels of success in daily training, once your dog comes out of adolescence, it will not forget any of these exercises and will be a much better and rounded dog. So that concludes this. So, Patrina, have you any questions? Have we any questions?
Thank you for that. I've just asked some people to put questions in if they have any. I can hear your dog in the background. So you've got a collie now, right?
Yes, he's trying to get out. He's been on cage rest. He's had a cruciate operation and he's been in crate rest, but he now decided he needs to go out.
Yeah, of course. Do you need to let him out? It's fine if you do.
No, I think he's lying down at the door.
Okay, yeah. I mean, you're a dog trainer. We have dogs. We understand that dogs have needs. And sometimes when you're on a Zoom call or you're on a Facebook Live, they have something they need, and that's okay.
Yes, he quite often would sit on my knee and have a look down the camera.
Aww. So you talked a little bit about competitive aggression with dogs earlier, and also that perhaps that was something that this is your current dog was sort of struggling with a bit, Cooper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So with having a multi-dog household, there's another male in the house, and they would compete over food. They've fought over food a couple of times, and quite often male dogs will compete, especially if they're unneutered. They'll compete over females. They'll compete over stuff, and they're just testing themselves and testing the strength. But so one thing we don't want them to practice is being aggressive, because if they practice and get good at it, they'll continue doing it, and it could be self-rewarding as well. So the dog that Cooper has fought within the house, it's always been my mistake. I've always walked away and thought, oh, I've done something stupid, and turned around and they've already started. But it's only happened 2 or 3 times, and they still run about together, so it's fine. But we
Yeah.
can't afford it to get worse.
And do you find that it's maybe a little bit of an old way of thinking, but it's something that I find, which is boy dogs tend to like have a bit of a scrap and maybe have more fights than girls, but when girls do it, it's almost like that's it, it's war. Do you
Yeah.
find that with your
Yeah.
bitch
Mhm.
fights? Yeah.
Yeah. I know the
um,
boys. The boys tend to just. It's really. There's, there's no damage done. It happens in seconds. It's over in seconds. But I think sometimes the females hold on to it a little bit longer.
okay. We've got a little comment from Alison, interested in how to deal with an adolescent dog who isn't food or toy motivated when out on a walk, but is very environmentally stimulated. Used a long line, short sessions, manage the places the dog would walk.
I would do lots in the house and lots in the garden. Training essentially is like, if you can think about the education system, you start training in kindergarten, which is the house where you have chances of success. Maybe the back garden, you could class it as primary school, and where you have chances of success, so it's a little bit higher. There's more distractions. Maybe high school is your front garden or the street in front of your house, and university will be the park and the main road. So until you succeed at one level, you're not going to get anything at the next level. So if you can't get a recall in your back garden, you're not going to get it in the front. And you're certainly not going to get it in the park. So it is about training at different levels and setting your dog up for success.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know from my own experience of, and this is something that probably puppy owners do. My first dog 19 years ago, I wasn't a dog trainer and didn't let her off lead when she was a tiny puppy because I was too scared to, because I thought she would run away. And so when she was an adolescent, I thought, well, I've done a bit of training now, I'll let you off lead. And she legged it out the park because she was confident. She knew who I was. She knew where she was. And it was like the worst thing I could have done, really, in that you're confident now, you're much more curious about the world, and you're much less likely to stick with me. So it's like building those foundations when they're tiny and they're not so confident and not so curious that they feel safe to get away from you. Yeah, just that adolescence thing, it can be a real eye opener, as it sounds like you found with your new dog.
Yeah, and I've had many adolescent dogs, but this one has been the big test. Because he came from rescue and he was terrified. He came into a house with three other dogs, and he had been in a house, he'd been in rescue, then he'd come to another house, and it was just too much for him.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
he marked everything. He peed in curtains, he ate plants, he peed in dishes. He was shocking. And the
okay.
first 3 days he escaped twice. So there you go.
And just here, I've got Joe asking, have you found it typical for your older male dogs to stop playing with a puppy once it has gone into adolescence? And do they start again once adolescence is over?
Yes,
Interesting.
yes. Yes, that happens. They like to play with the puppies because they're rewarding and they're a bit of fun, but when they become adolescent, they start testing, and the older dog doesn't like it, so it backs off a little bit. When adolescence is over, everything calms down, and the competition is less, and they kind of like each other a lot more.
Interesting. Yeah. I don't want you, horrible teenager, get away from me, because they're much more
Mhm.
bouncy and pushy. Yeah.
I know
Um,
plenty of mothers who feel the same way about their
yeah.
sons.
Although I think teenage sons possibly easier than teenage daughters. I think if we did a poll, mums might say they prefer the teenage sons.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, this is a big one. Rachel asks, I have a client who has an adolescent GSP who is still very bouncy and mouthy. We are working on that. She wants to get him castrated as the vet had advised, but has asked my opinion. Just bring it up again. From all the learning I've done on adolescence, it may calm him, but the mouthing may persist. I also don't feel their relationship is brilliant as they struggle to manage him. Not a dog I would have recommended for them, but it's too late for that. I've advised getting him into scent work and gun dog specific training. What are your thoughts? And she says she is a vet nurse and trainee dog trainer.
Okay. I would provide more chew toys, get as many as possible, from antlers to those wood sticks that you can get now. And gun dogs are trained to use their mouths more than most other dogs, so mouthing can be an issue for them. Um, So whatever chew toys you can get, just keep them rotating, keep them in a box. Don't let them have access to them all the time. I would not be castrating that dog as yet. Um, Definitely not. And I would just practice short training sessions. Use the brain as much as possible and just go for the breed specific. The scent work. I would do some search games in the garden, search games around the house, anything like that, and keep them short and fun, and also plenty of rest periods because these dogs also need plenty of rest. And working dogs need more rest than we think. We tend to feel that they've got lots of energy. We tend to think that collies have lots of energy, but you have to remember working dogs are bred to also lie around until they're asked to work.
Yeah, absolutely. And also with any dog, that I always think if anybody's recommending castration as a behaviour fix, to use super early on, to rather than right, we're just going to go straight in for a castration, give them the implant and see what happens to the behaviour, and then and then the implant can come out. You can't just give them their testicles back. So
Exactly. Yes, that's not irreversible. Yeah.
yeah. What else? Paul just asks, Evening Robin, have you witnessed adolescence issues being more prevalent in certain breeds?
No. I think, well, actually, the working breeds potentially are worse because I feel a lot of reactivity in the likes of German Shepherds. Potentially, the mistakes were made during adolescence. Um, uh, it's strange because I have seen, I had a Yorkshire Terrier who passed last week, and he humped till he was 12 years old, whereas my colleague hasn't humped at all since he came into the house. So I don't think it's that breed specific, but sometimes, I think the results of adolescence and what has happened during adolescence may affect, well, certainly will affect the rest of their lives. And I think the working breeds like the shepherds, etc., may be more problematic later on, purely because owners maybe didn't understand adolescence as much.
Yeah. And I think there's some breed specific behaviours which owners are much more tolerant of and aren't so worried about. Whereas if you get an adolescent, jumpy, mouthy, grabby bull breed, it's not so hard to ignore and it can become more of a problem because of the way they deal with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Rachel just said, just in follow up to the castration issue, yeah, that's my thoughts. Thanks so much for that. You've confirmed what I was thinking. He struggles to rest and switch off, so advised to provide chews, licking, and nose work. And she also said, yeah, she said about the implant, which I agree is a temporary check of results. Yeah. Let's just have a look. May, I have a sprolly girl about 9 to 10 months old who was a rescue. She was with her litter mates till 4 months old. I'm finding she is a lot less tolerable towards my 2-year-old neutered boy. She has flicked at him once when he tried his luck to get her to play. She came into season on Christmas Day and the fight was about 4 weeks prior. Could this have been her season that was a factor in triggering her to snap?
It could have been the start of the season. We don't really know. Usually that come in season about 12 days after the cycle. So what's that? 2 weeks really. But the hormonal change in the body may have been sore, the body may have been, she may have had a longer season than normal. It may have started longer and she just may have been feeling uncomfortable and not in a playful mood. So I think the girls are quicker at telling the boys off, so they are.
Yeah, and I mean, if you think it is that, the easiest way to tell is start keeping a diary, and in 5 months' time, it'll either happen again or it won't. And if it's happened before then, it's not to do with the hormones. But
Yeah.
yeah, sometimes PMT gets you down, and dogs get it too.
Hmm.
Bitches definitely get
Yeah,
it too.
they certainly do. Yeah.
Okay. Joe says, I have a client who has an adolescent beagle bitch. We are really struggling with concentration and distraction, especially with scent. Not that surprising with a beagle. Any advice? Will the concentration be better after adolescent? They are currently, I'm not quite sure how old she is because she's didn't put it in the comment? I'm guessing a teenage dog.
I think a lot more exercises in the house for focus and attention, name recognition, that sort of thing. Um, as opposed to being outside, I think maybe a lot more in the house and garden where you can achieve some level of success to work through it. I think, even Cooper the Collie, if I took him onto the main road, he started to focus now, but maybe 2 or 3 months ago, I couldn't have got anything out of him. And that was just pure short sessions in the house, in the back garden, up and down the street. So he can walk at a loose lead and pay attention all the way up to the main road. When he gets to the main road, it depends on the mood he's in and how the traffic's going to affect him. I think beagles would probably be the same once you take them out of the house and garden. They're competing against all those scents is even more difficult. But I think if you do the groundwork that we discussed earlier, I think you probably get a lot more further with them. And again, use a long line for recall.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to what Georgia did a talk for us on gun dogs last week, and she said about actually reducing the amount of walks you do with your dog and making it
Yeah.
more about I'm going to train, I'm going to train, I'm going to train, I'm going to train, because a beagle is a working dog, and I think people forget that because they're so cute.
Yeah.
They want to work and they want to do stuff, and if all you're doing is like taking them to the park, they're going to go self-employed. So yeah.
Yeah, very much so.
May said thank you so much. He loves her to bits, sits licking her face, and she just sits there like, what is he doing? Aww. Excellent. Haven't we got any other questions? So is there anything else you'd like to say, Robin?
No, I thank you for this opportunity. I think adolescence is deeply misunderstood, and there's no right or wrong road to go down, but you just need to be wary of, the old-fashioned, get them neutered, that'll sort them out. Quite often, if you neuter a male dog in adolescence, by the time the neutering has taken effect, the adolescence is over. So, it's better to ride it out and see what sort of dog you've got on the other side of it. But I think, if anybody's taking classes and has clients, it is an opportunity to advertise as an adolescent class. Because purely because they've either missed puppy class or they've discovered that when puppy class is over, adolescence kicks in and they're at a loss as what to do. So it might not be. And at the end of my puppy class, I tell everybody, I warn them about adolescence, and recommend that if they're stuck, just to give me a ring.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for coming on, and hopefully some people got their questions answered and some people have learnt bits as well.
Okay, thank you.
So tomorrow we have a webinar at 2:00, which is being delivered by one of our members, Martina Miradoli. She's a Border Collie expert, and she's doing a webinar for us called The Brilliant Border Collie Brain. You can sign up for that at apdt.co.uk/webinars, and that's at 2:00. So we've got no evening session, but we've got a webinar in the daytime. And then on Friday, we'll be joined on a live by Julie Hilliard, and she's going to be talking to us about the importance of settling your dogs and teaching a nice, calm, relaxed settle. So hopefully see some of you on the webinar tomorrow. If not, I will see you live on Friday. Thank you very much.
Thank you.